This is Python's Paradise. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena, straight out of Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. And here we are, June 1st, 2021. And we're starting the month out on a great note because we are celebrating Hoodwinked on its 15th anniversary. Actually, apparently, according to the internet, it came out in December of 2005, but I know I saw it in January of 2006 in the theater, and what a great surprise this was. And I am so stoked. I got the director himself, the voice of Twitchy, on the show with me today. Welcome, Cory Edwards.
Thank you, sir. It's great to be here. I'm sorry I don't sound like Twitchy this morning, but I do have my coffee, so we'll see what happens.
You're not going to do some Twitchy for us?
Well, you can do some audio magic. You can make this whole interview sound like Twitchy if you want. Just take it up about 50% on Pro Tools. I'll sound like a busy little squirrel.
So that coffee's not going to help you any with that, huh?
No, it's not. But I do enjoy the coffee, so that's the only connection. I'm a much bigger guy than a squirrel. Yeah.
Yeah. I love when something comes along that like a lot of movies, they get stuck in the fast food restaurants with the tie-ins and this and that, and a lot of times I get kind of, not interested. Um and then something comes along like Hoodwink, which didn't get a huge amount of advertisement here.
Right.
But I went in and blindly and saw this film, and oh my goodness. I love the fact that it wasn't a straight Red Riding Hood story. This was brilliant. I gotta say, I loved this film, and the idea of it being a police investigation, and you got the four different storylines being told, all interwoven, and I think I was reading up on this morning before the interview started, and I was surprised to find out that this was made independently.
Yes. That's one of its distinctions, really. I mean, I think it was the first of its kind. Now, if somebody can check me on this, but up until this point, I think we were the first to independently make the movie outside of a studio system. Totally,
Mhm.
no studio money. Our fundraiser, our let me say, our investor was from San Francisco. Had never made a movie or invested in a movie. We had my brother and I and our partners. We had made many things as far as music videos and short films, and then we had a film go to Sundance. Our first feature was my brother's directing debut, Chillicothe. It went to Sundance in 1999. So that kind of created some interest from some investors and some people that had put in money to that film. This guy in particular, this investor, he wanted to make an animated film, and I had some experience in animation. But again, just like making very short subjects, I think the biggest thing we had done was a 45-minute VOD, as they say, direct to video Christmas special about a kid and a gang of robots. And so we showed him some of our animation work from our production company. And that's when he kind of challenged us and said, could you do a feature? And we were like, yeah, sure, not knowing how much work that would be. And so it cut to months later that he's giving us money, and we're like, oh my gosh, we're going to pay our bills. And not only that, we're going to make a movie. But we did not. I mean, we knew what we were doing as far as like what the story we wanted to tell. And my brother and I and my friend Tony, we were writers. We'd worked for a long time as writers and directing small things. But then to go to the Philippines, which was where our producers had some connections, and all our producers, all our animators were in the Philippines. And I don't mean that we outsourced it to the Philippines. I mean that I flew to the Philippines and slept in a bed in a house full of animators, and we were on the top floor and the animators were on the bottom floor. And so there'd be about 50 animators on these computers working on Maya software, and there'd be like a big rainstorm, and they'd go running out to the room where all the hard drives and all the storage was, and worry that we were going to lose our movie. So we worked in the Philippines for almost 3 years, and then finally somebody picked it up. So that's a long answer to your question, but I think that there was a VeggieTales movie that came out around that time, and so people have told me, well, that could technically also be an independent animated film. But it was also a huge brand, VeggieTales, who I've worked with since. But we were like, I don't know of anything else before that was completely independent. I guess you could call this original. It's based on an 800-year-old story, but an original thing that is independent of the studios. And we did show it to all the studios. I mean, we once it was almost done, we're like, who's going to put this out? We had no distribution. So then we thought we were going to be selling DVDs on the street corner or something. So we went to everybody, but everybody was kind of starting up their own, like even Sony and Warner Brothers and DreamWorks, they were all starting their own animated internal projects. It was kind of a boom of animation right at that time, around 2004, 2005. So they all said, hey, this looks great. It's very charming, very cute. Good job, guys. Good luck with that. Nobody wanted to pick it up. And then the Weinstein Company, now very infamous Weinstein Company, they were just taking off and they wanted to beat Disney at their own game. They had just parted ways with Disney. So they were buying up product as fast as they could to put it out in theaters. So then they came calling, and then it happened very fast at the very last minute. We thought nobody was going to pick us up, and then they picked us up, and it did come out. I don't know where it came out in Canada and around the world. It came out as they call it, the Martin Luther King weekend in late January or mid-January. Kids were out of school for the Monday. It almost came out on Christmas weekend, which we thought was going to be so awesome. And they're like, no, you're going up against a King Kong movie and a Narnia movie. We're not doing that. And so then they pulled it, and it went in that January weekend. And it did better than anybody thought it would do, including us. In the US, it came out, it was almost number one its first weekend. So it just missed it by literally like 50 grand or something. It was so close with another movie. And then it stayed in the top 5 that whole month. So that's the Cinderella story of Red Riding Hood, if that makes sense. But that's how it came out of nowhere. And I think that what you're responding to, like, everybody kind of went into this movie, everybody going with low expectations. I think that's always great. People went in with low expectations. Their kids dragged them to it. The commercials looked cute. And then they came out going, wow, and telling like college kids to go see it. So that's why, I don't know, a lot of movies have been made in the past 15 years, and this one keeps coming up. And I keep having people approach me on social media, people who were kids then and are now adults, and everybody just keeps talking about it. And I guess it is not because the animation is the best animation out there, but I think it is just because it's an interesting topic, and we're telling the story in a weird way. That's also a thing I think I'd never seen in a kid's film. The nonlinear storytelling, or telling the same narrative over and over from different perspectives. I'd never seen that in a kid's film, and that's what made me excited to try to make it. So
I read somewhere that the storytelling aspect, one of your influences was Pulp Fiction. Is there truth to that?
yeah, there was an R-rated version where Marcellus Wallace walked in to Red Riding Hood's house. No, there was nothing. But I think that I mean that in that Pulp Fiction, another movie that came out in a lot of festivals, Run Lola Run, which we loved at the time. And what else was nonlinear? I mean, Pulp Fiction was a big one, where it's jumping around in the narrative. And then Rashomon. Everybody brought up Rashomon, which I had not seen while we were making it, and I quickly decided to go see. And it is also very similar. They call it the Rashomon of animated kids films. But they're all like taking an event and telling it again and again from different perspectives. You're coming in the window instead of through the door. You're watching it from across the street instead of where the murder happened. It's like all those. So there have been films for adults. And I think right when we made it, we had discussions like, are kids going to get this? Are kids even going to know? That's why we put in that there's a motif of like a storybook that keeps opening.
I love that. Yeah.
Backwards. Because I think what kids understand is, I love this book. Read it again, Dad. Read it again. So you flip back to the beginning. So we kept showing the pages flipping back to the beginning, so that even small kids could understand, we're going back to the beginning again. And it was a great visual way to do it. But I also think kids were ready because, more and more kids were playing video games that had a narrative that you could jump around in. Or you could pick up where you left off in a DVD, or you could go to your favorite scene in a DVD, and kids know how to do that. Up until 10, 15 years ago, you just kind of watched the narrative from front to back, at least in children's stuff, in family films, because you're watching it on TV, or you're renting what's called a video cassette, kids. And, so you only have a front to back way to watch something. But now with everything we've got digitally, kids can watch things in bites, and they can watch and they can jump around. And it's interesting to see the MCU with all the Marvel movies. Those even over 20 movies, they're not even telling those linearly. So I mean, from the get-go, they were like, oh, now we're going to go back in time, and now we're going to go to the 90s, and now we're going to go back to present day. So, you know, there's a lot of demands on people's attention to jump around in a narrative, and it makes you work a little harder. But kids seem to get it right away. And as long as you put in something like, there goes the schnitzel truck again, and he's singing the same song, so we know it's the beginning of the same day. That was what allowed us as filmmakers to have fun with it. Like, we got so excited about the idea. It was actually a lot crazier and more complicated when we first started writing it. Like, we had characters intersecting so many times, we're like, this is going to be too complicated, so we would pull things away. But we have just enough of the day intersecting, I think.
Was the schnitzel truck part of the catering for the film?
I wish. You know, in Canada is where I saw my first schnitzel truck, and I did order from it. We thought, what's the weirdest thing that could come out of a truck that's not an ice cream truck that kids would run after?
Was it run by a lumberjack?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, he had a pretty good beard. I didn't ask what he did on the side. It was good though.
Yeah, I love the storybook aspect of this movie. I love the fact you took a children's story and told it in a way that doesn't talk down to children, but engages adults. There's a lot of adults that enjoy this movie. I mean, I'm going to be 49 next month, and I love this film, you know, and I put it right up there with like Toy Story 2 and
Oh gosh,
movies like that were just so
praise.
clever, you know.
That's praise.
Yeah.
Well, we wrote it just to amuse ourselves.
Yeah.
We were about 30 something guys, and as long as we were laughing, you obviously have to consider kids. You know, these are kids. You know, you don't put any dark jokes or adult kind of references in a movie like this. But I don't know how else to write other than I have to be laughing, or I'm just not. I mean, when you make an animated film, you're doing it for 2 years, maybe 3 years. You got to stay interested in what you're working on. So we're amusing ourselves too.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I did read about and following research in this film, and I actually did not know this, is that originally, you know, you didn't have Anne Hathaway, Glenn Close, and Jim Belushi and people like that doing
Right.
voices in it. Talk about that process and your response to it.
Yeah, that was interesting because
Hmm.
we, for a couple of years, locked in a cast I was really happy with. But I'll be honest, they were not big names. Some people may know Sally Struthers
I
of All
do.
in the Family fame. So
Yeah.
we had a connection personally to her. She was a great granny. She was more of a Southern granny, and Glenn Close became more of a Northern particular granny. But she was like this Southern battle axe the way she did it. It was a great voice. Tara Strong was Red Riding Hood, and she's kind of the queen of animation. She's Batgirl. She's one of the Powerpuff Girls. She's always one of the leads in some of your favorite shows. So she did a fantastic job. And
You know,
then we had, so we had many people like that.
I was just going to, I don't mean to interrupt, but I was just going to say, it wasn't until Shrek that big stars were really,
Right.
well, I guess Toy Story did it as well prior to that with
Yeah.
Tom Hanks and Tim Allen. But back when Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and Bambi and movies like that, nobody knew who the animated cast was, you know, who the voice actors was.
Right.
And it's become almost now they're relying on the actors.
Yeah.
Um,
You pick almost any voice before. I think it was Shrek. I think Toy Story definitely had those big names, but I think Shrek was when they put the names on the poster and even put
yeah,
faces down the side. Like, these are movie stars doing our movie. I think that's when the movie star chasing began. I think there's still some of that still happening. And what's interesting is the smaller the budget, you see this film and many films I've worked on are in that kind of $20 million budget. They're not in the $200 million. And around in that $20 million budget, you see them stacking up a lot of names. You'll see the trailer, and it'll be like 10 names because that is the currency that they've got to operate with. But anyway, just to answer your original question, we were really happy with our cast. And then when Harvey Weinstein came along, you know, they wanted to market this film like it was Toy Story, and they really did. They had a poster for every character. They had giant cardboard stand-ups in the movie theaters. They said, one of the things we want to talk to you about is revoicing all the roles. And with one phone call, Harvey could get Anne Hathaway. With one phone call, he could get Glenn Close. So it's like, how do you argue with that? I really struggled with it because I'm very loyal to people in general, and I was very loyal to my actors. So I wrote these handwritten note cards to each actor just saying, I'm so sorry. This is the nature of us getting our film seen. This is going to help our film. You did a fantastic performance. Like, I just let them know, it's not you, it's me. One of the voices for Chief Grizzly is one of my good friends, Joel McCrary, and he's had this happen to him many times. And so I called him up and I said, I got bad news, Joel. And he knew before I even said it. He went, no, but he understood. But it was very painful to tell these people, you're not going to be in the movie. They did get, you know, they got paid for the work that they did. But it's just hard to argue at a certain point that our film, no one had heard of us 3 months before it hit the theaters. And then they're like, all of a sudden, it's not that kids know who Glenn Close is, because they don't. But it gives parents a certain amount of comfort level. There's this, and I don't know if this is still true, but like, unless you have the name Pixar or Disney, or now it's something like DreamWorks, but there's always one or two big names that they want them to go out and do press. You know, there's just a lot that comes with a big name. So I didn't like it, and it got a little out of hand at a certain point. If you'll remember, the Lizard director, you know, the director of the Bunyan Cream commercial. Yeah, they were trying to replace him. Like, they were trying to get like Spike Lee to do the voice. They wanted like a big director. They wanted to get Quentin Tarantino to do the voice, and it just became like, look, that really is not. We've already got like boom, boom, boom. We got like Anne Hathaway, we got Jim Belushi, we got Glenn Close, and it just became a little obsessive. Like, we're going to replace every single voice. So then I started kind of fighting against it. One voice that never changed was Patrick Warburton as the wolf. And what's interesting about him is that he was the first guy to come on board with no money on the table. We met with him at Jerry's Deli in LA. It was the connection we had to him was that Tony Leach, one of my co-directors, he was working on a set of an indie film that Patrick was doing. And he was like, I got this script, it's animated. And Patrick he's up for anything. A lot of these actors, I'm amazed, they're up for, you know, they just want to work. They want to work on interesting things. So it was a real testament to, it didn't matter that we didn't have a lot of money. He read the script and found it unique. And then we met with him and he was like, yeah, I'll do it. And it was like, you know, you only get one kind of flavor with Patrick Warburton, but boy, people love that flavor.
You know what?
The movie kind of revolves around his voice in a lot of ways.
The first time I heard of Patrick Warburton was when he voiced Kronk in The Emperor's New Groove. And that's another animation I enjoyed. And a lot of the laughs come from him.
Yeah. He's the highlight of the film. Yeah. What a highlight.
My favorite voice in Hoodwinked is Patrick Warburton as the wolf. In fact, the wolf is my favorite character in the show.
For a lot of people, I think for a lot of guys too, and you know, there are a lot of guys that get the Fletch reference, that he is a direct homage to Chevy Chase's character Fletch, and that he literally wears a Lakers jersey. And during his opening montage, some film critic was like, there's synthesizer music in the movie, which seemed a little low class. I'm like, no, we put synthesizer music only in the wolf's telling, because we wanted people to remember Fletch, and it's supposed to sound like Harold Faltermeyer music. So, you know, some people didn't pick up on, there are just so many Easter eggs we put in, because again, we're just trying to have fun while we're making this. And so we jammed all kinds of stuff in there, references to many, many movies. And it's not like it's a movie full of movie parodies, but we'll make fun of a trope, something you've seen in like 50 movies. Like in every action movie, there's always this moment, or in every spy movie, when Granny is hanging above the secret lair of the bad guy and like a little bit of sweat drips off her nose. You could say that's directly from Mission Impossible, but you know, there's also a scene in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man where a little drip of blood comes off him. There's always a moment like that. So it's like we're making fun of a lot of action beats or a lot of mystery beats. Nikki Flippers, the frog, everybody's like, why is he walking a dog? Like, some people find that weird in this world, but we gave him a little dog and a little suit, and he is a direct homage to a guy. It was very old films. They were called The Thin Man. It was a series of films called The Thin Man, and he's an investigator, just like Poirot or a lot of other Agatha Christie characters. And so we thought he was a funny investigator to bring into this. And so we watched a lot of those old films. So there's things like that that are all over the place. But to get back to Patrick, he was probably our favorite character to write for too, because he's more of our sense of humor as guys of that age. And we would just write little sarcastic things. And there's a lot of things he recorded that we could not put in the movie that were so funny. Just little wisecracks and little dark things the wolf would say.
Yeah.
he did a whole I'm trying to think when Red Riding Hood sprays him with mace, sprays him with spray in his eyes, and he did like a 30-second take where he was just screaming, it burns my eyes, my retinas are acid in my eyes. Like it was really dark and we couldn't use it. But he just went nuts in the booth for this film. So we're really happy about it.
Yeah, I love, speaking of Nicky Flippers, I love the Saturday Night Fever references to him.
Yeah, well, that was a weird, I think my brother made that joke. You have the movie, and you just keep laying jokes on top of it. And we kept saying, can we do that? Like, there's a lot of cutaway jokes. Like, why do they call you Flippers? And then when we see that he would always do flips in the dance club. And if it made us laugh, we really didn't have the budget to make a whole separate scene in the Saturday Night Fever dance club. But it's really just a rainbow colored floor and darkness, and then just any characters we had in silhouette. So we were like, can we pull this off? If we did too many of those cutaways, like, Family Guy will just cut away. There's 3 or 4 of those that we thought were worth it, But yeah,
that one was.
And I think why this movie sticks with people is because of moments like that where nobody was stopping us from doing anything. And I got to tell you, I worked for so many producers and studios, getting studio notes, and there's no studio. I think that Chris Miller and Phil Lord have started making movies where movies are allowed to get this weird. But I think for a long time, every movie had to just have this same kind of homogenous sense of humor that was not too weird and not too boring. And so it was just this kind of middle ground of humor that a lot of family films had. And then we just did weird stuff. We have a Ken Burns documentary joke in this movie. When the wolf says, I was raised by wolves. Like, that's a funny joke. But then we go to a black and white picture of him sitting with a family of wolves in a black and white photo. And then we play sad piano music and do a little Ken Burns move. We almost put narration on it, like a Ken Burns Civil War documentary. And we just kept thinking, can we do this? Are we allowed? And we just did. I mean, we had 2 producers who also had worked in the business, but they kind of let us do it too. I mean, we were all just kind of finding our way. And I think that a lot of art that breaks out or sticks with us is art that was made by people that didn't know what they weren't allowed to do. A lot of things right before they came out had critics saying, I don't even know what this is. Like, Star Wars was people, literally the actors making Star Wars would go back to the green room and go, I'm not even putting this on my resume. This is the weirdest thing I've ever been in. Or The Matrix or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'm sure when those guys were handing out their first comics, people were like, this is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. There's nothing like this. So I don't even know how to sell it. So that's all I can say is that I'm glad we were allowed to be a little weird.
Yeah,
few things in my career have been like that.
I was going to say, there was some jokes in this movie that there's some jokes in this movie that they're small, but yeah, I remember them big time. Like, I'm going to tell you where the villain is saying, barking an order there, barking order there, and then he says, you change your name.
Yeah.
Why, Keith? Yeah. Oh, but Keith, we're so afraid of Keith. Right. I love that.
I think, because we were like, he's naming all the henchmen, and henchmen always have names like Dolph and I don't know, Eliza. They're always like kind of like German names or European names, and then there's a guy named Keith. We also find the name Greg funny. That's why we made the Greg Stiltskin joke. When
Greg.
Right. Well, I'm sorry, Greg. You know what? It's a funny name when you give it to a mythical creature.
Oh, I'm not offended. I'm honored.
Yeah.
Well, but I love the Keith joke. Yeah. Keith.
Apologies to everybody named Keith too. I think that I have to give credit to Andy Dick, who did the voice of the bunny And then I think the joke ended with, Keith, change your name. And then we just kind of moved on. And the magic would happen when we would just let Andy just kind of run off script. And he gave us some of the funniest moments of his role. Because it was kind of like recording a child. Sorry, Andy, but it was kind of like recording a little kid where we just let him like run around the room mentally and just like, he was our Robin Williams, really. He would kind of trail off and talk for a minute, and then we would grab pieces of that and put it in the movie. So it's like, sorry, Andy, we can't put a minute of this in. But that Keith, watch out for Keith. It's one of the many Andy Dick gems.
I still laugh at that.
Yeah. Or like he does a maniacal laugh. He like laughs insanely, and then he starts crying a little, and then he laughs again. And he did that for a long time. He did just a crazy psycho, like his mind is breaking down. And we were like, this is so messed up. But so we used like a little bit of that, and that's just all Andy, just kind of coming up with how psycho is this bunny, and how sarcastic.
I got to admit, though, I do love. I'm going to tell you. I remember when I was young, going to church. There was I was in a Sunday school class, and we were playing this game where they'd have all these various characters, and one would be a cop, one would be a nurse, one was a hippie, one was this, one was that, and we would have to decide. We'd have to pick, I think, three that would join us on this adventure. But every one of them had a backstory. And some of the more obvious ones you think you would pick turned out to be villains.
Ah,
And some of the ones like that you would less likely pick, like the hippie, turned out to be somebody who can do sign language and translate stuff and blah blah blah.
that's
And
interesting.
it became an interesting lesson about how we often judge by appearances. And I'm reminded of that when because that was like years ago, but I was reminded of that with Hoodwink because you've got Granny Pocket, who portrays herself as this meek granny who's baking and knitting needles, but she's really a gladiator who fights in the octagon, and she does all these daredevil stuff. You got the woodsman who sells stitchels, and
He
drive.
looks like a tough guy.
Yeah, but he really wants to be a Broadway actor and sing. You get the wolf, of course, who's stereotypically supposed to be the villain, but he's really a private investigator,
Right.
investigating the Granny Bucket's food, or no, not Granny Bucket's food, the food going missing, and
The Goody Bandit. Yeah.
yeah, the Goody Bandit. And then you got Red, who's also really interesting. I love the backstory with the hood, and
Yeah.
she, of course, has an interesting little backstory as well about who she is and what she aspires to be, how she wants to go beyond the forest.
Yeah.
And then you got the bunny, who this comes off as a sweet character. And spoiler alert for those that, of course, it's been 15 years, but
Yeah. Yeah.
the bunny ends up being the villain.
Yeah.
And he
We
even
decided,
says there, "Who? I'm just a sweet little bunny rabbit."
right. Well,
You
we
know?
decided like maybe the villain shouldn't be any one of our main characters, but so we put
Uh-huh.
him in just enough. And there's a little squirrel in the movie, and there's a couple other little. So it's like he's kind of hidden in plain sight. It ain't the Sixth Sense, I'll tell you that. If you're over 10, you probably see it coming. But yeah, we thought the cutest one, maybe the cutest, most adorable one is the bad guy, and this is the theme is the original theme of Red Riding Hood is a cautionary tale of be careful of strangers. You don't know who is behind the faces you meet. But also, I think that our message was sometimes people aren't people are not necessarily what you think they are. Sometimes they're better. So
Yeah.
even with the wolf and some of these other kind of the woodsman with an axe, it's mostly the wolf, but all the masks that we wear and all the assumptions we make of people, sometimes people are better than you think they are. Sometimes people will surprise you. So that's the positive side of that. It is a danger to assume that a cute person is always a nice person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that even kids could understand that sometimes an ugly person or a scary looking person. It's just the way they look, and they might be the most helpful person. So I think that's a great thing to point out.
It even touches even on going back to Nicky Flippers about the Saturday Night Fever, what he does when he's,
Yeah,
you
he's a
know,
dancing fool. He's like, we kind of
yeah,
want Flippers to get in on more of the action, and he doesn't really do that.
yeah, like there's so much in this, and of course, when it comes to the bunny, I love that line. Everybody quotes it. You'll be fearing the ears, fear
Fear
the
the
ears.
fear,
That was
fear.
that was great.
Bruce Lee action movie line.
Yeah, that was great.
Enjoyable.
And of course, Twitchy. You're the one who did the voice of Twitchy.
Yeah,
Instead of the spinach that Popeye takes, he has to have coffee, and he just.
right, right. It's interesting. The coffee thing came in very late in the movie when
Yeah.
he has his own superpower when he drinks coffee. Very, very late. It's probably one of the last jokes that was allowed to get into the movie that we knew we could animate in time. Because there was a joke very early on where we meet Twitchy with the wolf, and Twitchy exists because we thought, well, the wolf, he's going to be on his own a lot if we don't give him somebody to talk to. So he does talk in a tape recorder. He's a reporter. He's thinking through his thoughts in his tape recorder. But we thought, man, it would be funny to do kind of an Abbott and Costello, Laurel and Hardy. Who would be best to pair with this guy who is, Patrick's voice and the Fletch kind of character? He's super dry. He's super low key. He's kind of slow mo. So how do we pep up his scenes? Well, let's give him the most frantic, tiny, busy character. And that was one of those characters. Japheth the goat and Twitchy the squirrel were two characters that literally we created in 10 seconds. I don't think we went through any other versions. We said, what if it was a squirrel and his name was like Twitchy? Like that's literally how fast we created him in the writer's room. And then I think the first drawing I did of him was what we handed to the animators to build. Same with Japheth the goat. Those are two characters that like I drew one thing and we were like, that's it. All the other characters went through maybe 50 drawings, 50 different designs. But so that's weird. But Twitchy the squirrel with the coffee, I think Wolf makes a joke. Like, you ever switch to decaffeinated coffee? And he's like, I don't drink coffee. And it's just like a joke in the beginning of the film. And then later, I think it was Todd who goes, what if he did drink coffee? And we're like, oh, what if we created a moment where he had to drink coffee? And it's like pouring gasoline on a fire. And so that scene that people remember, it's very late in the game. And it's one of the favorites. So
What made you decide to do the voice of Twitchy? Sped up.
no, I did in any animated film, you have what's called temp voices for a long, long time. You'll just storyboard the movie and cut it together like a moving comic book. If people don't know, I think a lot of people know that storyboard process now. And then for voices, you just get anybody. A lot of times the editor does the voice, the director does the voice. You get somebody down the hall. The receptionist, she does a great voice. And let's bring her in for the girl. So it's like, usually it's like 3 or 4 people around the office that just do the temp voices. Or for some of these higher dollar places, you actually hire a bunch of voice actors, knowing they're never going to be the final in the movie, as we've talked about, celebrities come in. So I did most of the voices for Hoodwinked for about a year. People got real used to me being Granny. Like Tony, my co-director, was like, man, I kind of miss you as Granny. I would do this kind of a, well, dearie, oh my goodness, sweet tea and biscuits. So, and I did her, and I did many of the voices. I think Todd did the voice of the wolf. So we just had enough differences in voices so you could tell what was going on. And Twitchy just stayed. I think they didn't care because it was already a voice that was sped up. So they couldn't, like, we put a celebrity in this voice, you never know who it is. So I just kept doing it. And I basically do a bad Joe Pesci impersonation. Mm-hmm. I'm like talking like this, or maybe it's like a Danny DeVito, like this. And I knew enough to, it's also a post-production centered voice where
Here's
if I know,
my Twitchy.
Hi Twitchy the cat.
Actually, it's Skittles, but he's my kid, Twitchy.
Twitchy can go on an adventure. Hi, Skittles.
Skittles, are you going to go on an adventure with Twitchy? He's like, Jeepers, you embarrassed me on the camera again.
Have you been tasting the rainbow?
Have you been tasting the rainbow?
Yeah, but I think in recording Twitchy, because it was so like touch and go with the editor, I would sit next to Tony, my co-director was also the editor, and we would figure out, well, how much of what Twitchy is saying do we need to know? So sometimes a word would have to pop out. So I would slow down for that word, and then I would just chatter away again. And I kind of could get to know that. And that's a real difficult thing to just bring an actor in and do. So So Twitchy is very much, we found that voice as we were doing temp voices and as we were editing the movie together, which we did about 100 times before we animated anything. We probably edited this movie, the story reel, twice as much as a typical animated movie. So that maybe is also part of its comedic charm, is that we were trying out jokes for a year before we, because we were so afraid to spend money. Like the second we started animating something, we knew the dollar amount was going up. So we made this movie as storyboards many, many times. So that's part of that too.
I heard that a lot of the original voice talent still got brought on to do smaller roles. Talk about that.
Yeah. Well, I kind of, I find voiceover actors, true voiceover actors, the unsung
Mhm.
heroes of animation. These guys are machines. And I just, again, I'm a very loyal person and I hated
Yeah.
to lose these people. So, we said, hey, like for Tara Strong, she's the voice of this fox who is skiing in the ski race. A fox, I think we still called her Zorro. She's like, hey, what's going on, man? And then she was kind of like a Latina fox. She can do just about anything you ask her to do.
I like that. You didn't just do that, when they're trying to bump up her.
Right. So
Yeah.
there's stuff like that. Stuff like that. I don't know that any of, like, Glenn Close didn't do anything else, or no, I'm saying Sally Struthers, our original granny. But we did have like Tom Kinney. I think I was really sad to miss him. He was originally the sheep that I can't remember what the sheep's name is, but the wolf is interrogating. So he did this really like nervous Steve Buscemi voice, and I've worked with Tom for many other projects, but so he may have done some other little critters.
hmm
But I will say it is, I would always choose a voiceover actor over a celebrity if I could.
hmm
I understand the game. You got to play the game when it comes to like getting some celebrities in your movie. But when Tara Strong walks in and she goes, so how old is Red Riding Hood? And we're like, I don't know. She's like a preteen. She goes, well, is she 13 or is she 16 or is she 10? Because those will all sound different. And she could literally turn the dial on her voice to sound younger, older, like by years. So that is the kind of detail. That's the kind of machines that these guys are. So I was
I
real
I
voice.
sh- I should reach out to some of these people and have them come on here, because a lot of people know the celebrities, but not a lot of people know these people. Are these people on social media?
Yeah. Oh yeah. A lot of them are.
Okay.
Phil Lamar, James Arnold Taylor, and they love to interact with their fans. And I will also say, and not to make fun of celebrities, because I think they'll be fine. A lot of them are great at voices, and a lot of people you see on screen that have a persona on screen doesn't work just as a voice. My sister Katie, she one of her first gigs in LA was at Disney, booking all the voices and scheduling all the voice records for all the big Disney feature films.
hmm
There are many celebrities that were almost the voices in big animated movies, and then because they're Disney, after weeks of recording them, they said this isn't going to work. Sarah Jessica Parker did not work as an animated voice. Robert Downey Jr. was the original Megamind. Did not work. They tried to make it work for months, and apparently, Robert Downey Jr. is all about this. I mean, you got to have a lot of what he's doing visually. So some actors, it's a painful realization that you don't recognize their voice, or they don't do the things with their voice that you think they do. Their on-camera persona is kind of part of it. So sometimes you realize that too late. So that's why it's like celebrity doesn't always solve things. And again, no kid is like, oh my gosh, Holly Hunter is the voice of Mrs. Incredible. I've got to go see The Incredibles. I love Holly Hunter. No 10-year-old knows who Holly Hunter is,
hmm
but we do, and we recognize her unique voice, and we're like, oh, that's kind of cool. I don't know that it made me go see the movie though.
Yeah.
You don't
I'm
call it
a,
that Holly Hunter movie.
I'll be frank. I didn't go see Hoodwinked because of the celebrity voices. I went and saw Hoodwinked because this looks like something different.
Oh, good. Well, good.
Yeah.
That's the other side of it too. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I love the creativity. Like I just saw Cruella, and I loved it.
Okay.
I I love what they did with that. I love what the soundtrack, because I love Emma Stone,
Mhm.
and I love what they did with it. I like it when people take something familiar and they'll do something like they'll do a complete U-turn,
Yeah,
which is what
something
you
brand
did here.
yeah. Well,
Talk, huh?
go ahead, ask the question there.
Well, I was gonna say, talk about. Did you have any interactions with Hathaway or Jim Belushi or Glenn Close?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean,
Okay.
once most of those level of actors, you really only have the time that they are booked in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
I try to get them on the phone first, and for some I don't know what it is. Live action movies, you can have weeks of rehearsals with an actor, but there's some stigma about animated movies that like they're just going to blow in there and they're just going to do their thing, and then you got to schedule about 45 minutes at the front of their session to figure out the voice and for them to get familiar with the character. So it's so we had a lot of talking at the beginning of all their sessions. I think Jim Belushi, God bless him, we had already had a very talented temp actor, David Ogden Stiers, who has since passed away. But he still, to answer that other question, he still does the voice of Nicky Flippers. So for a
Yep.
while he did Nicky Flippers and the Woodsman. And man, he was a great woodsman because he was so kooky and crazy. And David Ogden Stiers is a very talented guy to do many accents from around the world.
Mm-hmm.
So we finally came to Jim Belushi as the guy to be the woodsman, and he did get on the phone with me, and he said, "I don't know if I'm the guy for this. I'm a little nervous about this accent." And I'm like, "Go back to your days on Saturday Night Live, or go back to, you know, this is a character." And we just really had to kind of talk it through about how crazy he could be and how free he could be. But it's also very difficult for these celebrities to do what's called ADR. They weren't free to just because they were being brought in after the animation was done with the other cast. They were in a very difficult position that a lot of big actors do not like, because that's a very special kind of voice acting that I've tried to do it a couple of times, and it is difficult. You're watching animation already on screen, you're already watching lips moving, and then you've got to perform with those lips moving. And so there's not a lot of new things you can try. You've got to keep speaking in the exact same speed and drop it right in. And so that became very frustrating to some of our big actors that we brought in. But ultimately, all of them loved the project, and we had some really great conversations as we made the movie. And Anne, she was at the, I will say, she was at the dawn of the career she has now. She had done
Mm-hmm.
Ella Enchanted, she had done The Princess Diaries. But literally, I was saying, "What are you doing after this?" Like as she's recording my writing, she said, "I'm going to shoot this movie called The Devil Wears Prada."
I loved it.
Like it was right before that, and after that movie, bam! I mean, like she's one of the biggest actors in the world. She gets movies
Mm-hmm.
made now, but that was right before that. So, she was a younger version of herself. She was very excited to be able to sing in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then Glenn Close, I was more intimidated, obviously. That was a day that I was really shaking and quaking, and she's one of my wife's favorite actors of all time. So my wife got to meet her on the red carpet of the premiere, which was really cool. But she put me at ease because Glenn Close is like she's probably the biggest actor we had in the movie, and I mean, everything that you probably guess about her is true, is that she's a working actor. She's a hard worker, and she doesn't put on airs. And she walked in there, she was sunburned from her weekend on the boat. And she was just like, I said, "Well, what do you want to do here?" And she said, "Well, why don't you tell me about the movie? Because you know more than anybody. Why don't you tell me about the character?" And a lot of actors don't do that. They're like, "I'm going to do this accent. I won't do this. I will do this." And Glenn Close was just like, "I want to hear what you want me to do." And then and there's this thing that you're never supposed to do with actors, which is a line reading, where you literally say the line to them. Say it like this: "I have to get to grandma's house." Man, does that piss off some actors. But after a few takes, Glenn Close would be like, "Cory, you can just tell me what you want. Just tell me if you want it
Oh, I
fast.
love that. I
Why don't
love
you say
that.
it?" And I'm like, "I don't want it." She's like, "Hey, we're just working here." So she was very much like, roll up your sleeves and just kind of do whatever it takes. And then I will always have a soft spot for Patrick Warburton.
Yeah,
He's
we all do.
he is still on my phone. I've got his number. He has helped me with several charity events. He told me that myself and my brother and Tony, like the original Hoodwinked guys, we did not direct Hoodwinked 2. And he called me up and said, "I'm going to do Hoodwinked 2, but I'm only doing it for you guys. If you guys want me to do it, I'll do it." So he has been very loyal to us, and he's been and so much fun to work with, because he's one of those guys that he's kind of a voiceover guy too, he's an on-camera guy, but he's a voiceover guy, and he would come in like just dressed like he's ready to put up drywall. He would come in with like a backwards ball cap on and sweatpants, and like, and we're like, this is the day we're doing interviews on camera. He's like, whatever, I'll go put on a clean shirt. He's very much a blue collar kind of a guy in a lot of ways. So he was
Even on camera, like with Ted, like, I mean, and even in like Family Guy, like, I mean, you recognize that voice,
He had swagger for days. Swagger for days. Well, and then I'm sure Andy Dick would not mind me telling stories about him because he knows he's difficult. He was the most difficult. Sometimes he would show up 2 hours late, even if we had a car waiting for him on the driveway. And first day he showed up, I was like, so have you read the script? He's like, no, I haven't read the script. Did you get the song demos? We wanted him to sing these songs. We like sent him a whole demo of all the songs with my brother singing them on a CD. No, I didn't listen to it. So the first day was very difficult. And then once he found out like that he really enjoyed the movie and that we were letting him be funny, and he found out Patrick Warburton was in the movie, and that's like one of his favorite people. And he found out all the other people that were going to be in the movie. He came to the studio the next day with a much different attitude, but it was rocky at the beginning. And it taught me as a young director, you have to work with actors work a lot of different ways. And Andy worked very differently than all the other actors. And I should have sniffed that out early. Some actors, you want to nail exactly what the director wants on the first or second take, and then you let them do what they want to do. Andy was one of those guys that was like, you better let me do what I want to do first. And so the next day we were like, do whatever you want, Andy. And he would just go crazy and he would do stuff that I hated. And I would just sit there and let it happen. And then I'd go, now try it like this. And then I would finally, on like take 8, get what I was actually wanting. But in takes 1 through 7, even though he did a lot of weird stuff, we might pull like one phrase or one weird idea, and is one of the most memorable performances in the movie. So that's what I learned from Andy Dick. He taught me a lot from his behavior.
Talk about working with your brother. Like, I know you guys go back and film a while back from this, but talk about working with him on these projects.
Well, I think it was Todd and I are both very strong personalities, and we're not like a duo that typically works together. I know there are a lot of brothers that they come as a set, and you see them direct many movies together. This was a rare and wonderful time where I'll be honest, we both have movies that we want to make. We're both writers and directors. We're both guys that want to make our own path. And this was a time where, we didn't have anything else going. We both wanted to survive and make money and keep paying the bills. And so when Hoodwinked came along, we said, we should do this together. I had the most experience in animation. I had worked at a couple animation companies. And growing up, I was kind of the guy that did a lot of animation with my short films. And so early on, I think our small company, Blue Yonder Films, we said, well, Cory's going to direct it. But then we took a step back and thought, I can't be in several places at once. We're going to be in the Philippines. We're going to be here. Todd was already going to help me write it because I just found a great companion in him. And we would come up with jokes just talking to each other. So we were already having fun writing it together. And then, our producer said, well, a lot of animated films have more than one director. And this was my first film. So I was really worried about, well, will I ever work again if I'm only known as one of 2 or 3 directors? So I remained the director, and then Todd came on as my co-director. And I'm so glad because, and then eventually we had Tony Leach, our old friend, he was editing it, but then he also started rewriting a lot of scenes. And they were like, you know what? He's really become a co-writer with us. And then, about 6 months into the process, we said, we need to make him a co-director so that he can stay on. And we became kind of a 3-headed monster. We called ourselves a 3-headed monster. So at the end of the day, I was approving all the shots that finally went into the film at the very end of the funnel. But if I couldn't be in the Philippines at this studio in Manila, and Tony could, or Todd could, if I couldn't take a phone call, they could. And we had talked for hours and hours about what the tone of this movie is, what the tone of the comedy is. So if they had to end up setting a shot or directing an actor and I couldn't, I had complete confidence. So that's what it was like. It was a wonderful time. And I don't know that it'll ever happen that way again, honestly. And that's not a sad thing. Like my brother's got his own company now, and Tony's making his own movies. And so it was kind of a Venn diagram. It was a nexus of where we were all together for that time. We needed each other. We needed this movie to be a hit. And once it was, for a while, we all had to take meetings together as a set because people didn't understand. Like they wanted to meet all three Hoodwink guys. And it took I'll be honest, it took a couple of years for us to break off and be able to take meetings by ourselves and sell our own scripts and sell our own projects. So there was difficulty there, but I still love those guys. And any victory, anybody that gives a shout out to Hoodwink, I always forward it to them too. And on Twitter, we're all still interacting, and we all still kind of really enjoy the success that this movie keeps having, which is weird.
Wow. You had a lot of great songs in this movie, and I don't even have a favorite. I know Red sings the one while she's on her bike, and
Yeah.
you got the goat singing about the different horns,
Yeah,
you know.
that's Todd Edwards right there. Let's talk about Todd Edwards and the music of Hoodwink.
Go for it.
Well, that's all due to him. That's all due to Todd. Todd was a major influence on many of the characters at their core. Like Todd came up with the wolf, I think. Todd came up with Tony came up with the title. I always give him that. Dropping him off at the airport one day, 6 months in, we were like calling it the Red Riding Hood movie. He says, "What about Hoodwinked?" And everybody got on the phones, was like, "That's it." But for Todd, for the music, he was composing that on a guitar. I want you to picture like a small apartment in Pasadena, and in one room, I'm still writing scenes while Tony is cutting storyboards that I have drawn. He's scanning them and cutting them on a Mac. And then in the kitchen, Todd's like got a guitar. In his bedroom, he's like recording the songs. Like it's literally, it started with 3 guys in an apartment. And so that's the beauty of that. And then those songs, eventually Todd found a partner in John Mark Painter, who's a very gifted songwriter himself. Shout out to Fleming and John, which is a Nashville-based group, he and his wife. So we found him through, I'm not even sure how Todd met him, but John became kind of the producer. So Todd would write the songs in a very bare bones way. He'd sing them into a tape recorder. He'd record them. We sent him down to Nashville, and then they started being produced. But Todd wrote 90% of the songs of the movie. I wrote a couple of rap songs, living out my childhood dream. And you can hear me on The Real G, Granny's rap song. And then we had a couple other friends who are independent music artists. That a couple of my friends got songs on the album. And it became people talk about the soundtrack as much as they talk about the movie itself. And that's a testament, though, to Todd. And Todd talked to me a lot about, could we make music in a kid's movie that doesn't make you want to kill yourself? Could we make music that you don't endure because your kids love it? Like, no offense to Barney or, early Teletubbies or some Sesame Street.
Oogie Loves.
What's that?
Oogie Loves. That was a difficult sit.
There's a lot of kidsy stuff that kids love. The Wiggles. There's nothing against those guys, but we wanted to make like a really good rock album. Like Todd pulled from the Beatles and Elton John, and he said, "This one's going to sound a little. I'm going to put a little Pink Floyd in here. Like there's stuff in it." And his voice is the voice of the woodchuck at the big rock concert.
I love the snake, the snake is slamming the thing on his head.
Right. So Todd is the voice of the lead singer in the song Tree Critter, and a couple of the other songs he's a lead singer. And so that's kind of a side gig of Todd's, is that he is still an evolving music artist. So while he's writing his films, he's also kind of working on the soundtracks. But I love that people still talk about the soundtrack. And you mentioned Red Riding Hood's first song. Mm-hmm. He was even man enough to throw a whole song away. He had written a whole other song for Red Riding Hood. And it was very nursery rhyme-y. He would say that too. It's very sing-songy, about goodies make the woods go round. I think we reference we put a line in the movie, goodies make the woods go round, but that was the song. It was like, woods go round, goodies make the woods go round. It was very sing-songy. And he was finally, most of the songs done. He said, there needs to be something else here. And that's when he threw that one out and rewrote, Great Big World, which is a much bigger song.
I like that.
Much more of a rock Beatles kind of mid Beatles career song. I don't know what you'd call. He would be able to. I would encourage you maybe to try to get him on this show, because he could probably talk an hour about what his influences are for that. But I
Who
think that
is
was,
it?
what's that?
Who is it?
Todd Edwards?
Oh, Todd Edwards, your
Todd?
brother.
Yes.
You know what? I'm going to have to get him on here. Um,
See if he'll do it. I don't know if he'll do it, but he's a major influence on the tone of the film
mhm.
because the music, it's not that it's a musical, but it is filled with music. And we didn't have the money to go out and just get the rights to license music. At one point, we were negotiating a Foo Fighters song that we had temped into the movie for the ski contest.
Uh-huh.
And they didn't want us to use the one we wanted because it'd been overused in the marketplace. And so they sent us, their new album, and we were like, we can't find another song that works as well. But it was also going to be incredibly expensive. So a lot of like DreamWorks movies where you see a lot of pop songs in them, that's like $1 million worth of licensing that they're putting into their film.
Yeah.
So we had to make it original, and again, it was like Hoodwink was a way for us to put in every creative thing we've ever wanted to do. Like I've always wanted to do a voice in an animated movie, and I got to. We've always wanted to do other things, and Todd, he said, "I'll do the music." He was excited, so that's one more thing we didn't have to pay for.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how it happened. But it makes me happy, and it makes him happy when adults now still put that album on and still remember a particular song.
Did you have favorite animations growing up and even up to now?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We talked a lot about. Well, I find Toy Story the gold standard. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
sounds cliche now, but the jokes per minute in that movie is pretty amazing. And
Yeah.
they're not just toy puns. Some of them are, but it's character based. You're learning about Woody as he's making jokes about running the community meeting at the beginning of the movie. It's so great. Where he's like, "Everybody settle down," and he says something about like Speak and Spell led some toy safety clinic, which I thought was a big hit. Like and then when Buzz Lightyear shows up and the way they clash, there's so many jokes per minute. You're laughing so much. The other one is The Incredibles is one of my favorite
Yeah.
films, animated or live action. It's just a good film, and it's a film
Mm-hmm.
that if it's ever on cable, if you were to like just play it in front of me, I would stop like a dog that's seen a squirrel. I would just stop and watch probably 20 minutes of it in a trance. And also the design of the movie is the kind of movie I want to live in forever.
Yeah.
But when we were making the movie, we talked a lot about the Muppets, which is not
Mm-hmm.
animation, and we talked a lot about Bugs Bunny, primarily the Chuck Jones era of Bugs Bunny, of just how the comedy sometimes can work. We had animators who were very fresh and new they'd never made a movie, they'd maybe made a commercial. These were all very young animators. So we talked about like what is funny. And sometimes you don't have to over animate a face. And so we would look at Bugs Bunny cartoons where
Mm-hmm.
only the eyes would move. If a character knew they were in danger or they were freaking out, like maybe just their mouth would move and just their eyes, and then they would take off. And like just watching and analyzing what makes a Bugs Bunny movie funny. And I think also because of the Muppets and the Bugs Bunny references were also because it was a world where people and animals just coexist. And we had to come up with the rules of this movie. And so nobody freaks out when they see a wolf in clothing. They're just like, "Oh, that's the reporter we heard about." Like, this, everybody just kind of accepts it. So that's kind of a Bugs Bunny world. And that came with a lot of Bugs Bunny rules. The taxi cab pulling up in the middle of the forest because the wolf needs a taxi. There's no explaining. I can't tell you how many studio notes I would probably get. Like, well, you need to show that there's a road, and you need to show other cars in the woods. And nope, it's Bugs Bunny rules. If you need a taxi just shows up. Doesn't matter if you're in the middle of the woods. You could be in the Grand Canyon. If you need a taxi, and that's the joke. So we would break a lot of reality rules if it was funny enough, and that's Bugs Bunny.
Actually, I love the taxi joke. I'm sorry if I like stuff like that. It didn't make sense, but it didn't need to, And I love it. They only went a short distance.
Yeah. He just takes it and he's like, "Whoa, we passed her. Pull over here." And then
Yeah.
and in her version of the story, and we needed to do something because in her version of the story, he's like this beast that she can't get away from. She runs away from him and comes around the corner and he's right in front of her again. And it's scary. Well, then in his version, it's like, well, he took a taxi. And, so we come up with a funny way to tell the other side of that.
I loved
That
it.
wasn't scary at all.
Yeah, the wolf is my favorite character. Do you have a favorite character?
I would have to say the wolf, even though I did the voice of Twitchy. I personally would love to see a TV series with just the wolf and Twitchy solving fairy tale crimes.
Yeah.
Nikki Flipper solves a lot of those crimes, we know, but I just, the wolf is the one.
And of course,
I think Japheth the goat is something that I think was purely created by my brother Todd.
mm-hmm.
We're like, we need a character here. The movie's getting slow, and she needs to get from point A to point B. And Todd goes, what if it was like an old mountain goat who lives alone and was cursed by a witch and he can only sing? And we're like, yes. So just literally that a mountain witch put a spell on a goat. That is one that people love too. So he's maybe second place.
Yeah. And of course, I did like the small character of the he goes, my mom was half loon,
Oh yeah.
Grizzly, they're all great.
Bill Stork is
Bill
what
Stork.
we gave him. Yeah, he's funny, and Anthony Anderson added a lot to that. There was another guy. That was voiced by our co-director Tony Leach for a long time. He had kind of a Barney Fife kind of a voice, and then Anthony Anderson came in, and he kind of added his Anthony Anderson flavor to it.
Yeah, I love the loon.
Yeah, my mom is half loon.
You can take that in two different directions.
Because sometimes you forget these guys are animals, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh yeah, there's some animal jokes you can make.
Yeah. So I'm not even sure if I should ask it this way, but what happened with Hoodwinked 2, Hood versus Evil?
Let's get into it. Let's get into the sequel.
Because I did see this at the theater too. It wasn't quite Hoodwinked. No.
I'll tell you what, and I'm going to say all this. I have become friends with the director of Hoodwinked 2. His name is Mike Disa. He's a heck of a guy. I like him, and he was very passionate about what he was going to do with it. I'll tell you why we didn't have much to do with Hoodwinked 2. We did not have a good experience with the investor, our sole investor. He did not honor a lot of things that we thought were going to happen financially with the movie between us.
Mm-hmm.
That's as diplomatic as I can be. It's 15 years later, and I'll tell you, I think a lot of people assume that Todd and Tony and I and the producers, that we're all like flying around in solid gold helicopters and we never have to work again because of Hoodwinked. That is not true. The person who made the most money from Hoodwinked is the investor, and he continues to make millions and millions of dollars. And so does the Weinstein Company, which I don't know who's making that money now, but that is typical of a first film, though. A lot of times the money person and the studio make the bulk of the money. What it gave us was kind of careers. So, in a lot of ways, I'm still very thankful for the movie. So anyway, we did not have a good experience, and we were not honored with a deal we were trying to make on Hoodwinked 2 that would, a lot of things we had talked about happening financially with Hoodwinked 1, he was not willing to honor. And so we said, well, we're not making Hoodwinked 2. And so we're not directing it. But I think that we love the characters so much, and to protect the characters and protect kind of the story, we wrote Hoodwinked 2. And that's kind of where our involvement ended. And it's a fascinating experiment, kids. You can rent both movies and see either, I have a phrase when I talk to young filmmakers, when I do speaking engagements, either you direct it or you don't. And so this is a good example of, it doesn't matter what we wrote on the page, that director had a very different vision, and those producers, it was all very different producers. It was a whole different group of animators. So, like our vision for the characters, how they move and how they look in the first one is to remind you of like old Rankin Bass stop motion animated holiday specials. If you remember like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and the Little Drummer Boy, and all of those, we made the characters look kind of awkward and move in a certain way. And so in Hoodwinked 2, they're very fleshy, they're very bouncy, they're very different. You see Red Riding Hood kind of looks like a different girl. So they kind of redesigned all the characters, and they just kind of took things in a different direction. And the director did what he did. It's just another person's opinion of how the world should work and how the joke should work. And it was different, very different than mine. What we originally wrote for Hoodwinked 2 was kind of a film noir, city that Red and the Wolf go to, and we wrote it as a lethal weapon. We were so fascinated by Red Riding Hood, this little girl and this wolf working together, and obviously Twitchy's there too. But it was mainly looking at movies like Rush Hour and Lethal Weapon, just kind of like a cop buddy movie, like with two people that don't get along. And so, Granny's in it and all the other people are in it, but it's basically Red and Wolf going to the big city. So we thought, this is our Empire Strikes Back. So instead of being in the woods the whole movie, we're going to go to the city. And our city was supposed to look like Ridley Scott shot it. It was supposed to look like this gothic film noir, dark. I mean, we even wrote in the script, like, the streets are wet, reflecting neon signs. And it was always night.
Nice.
And it was always raining. And there was like steam coming out of the pipes in the street. So, we see the movie when it's done, and it's like the middle of the day. All the buildings are pastel colored. Some of the street lamps have gold lame on them. That's not my call. So you can write everything you want, but once you hand it over to another director and another team, that's just what happens. I even got to voice Twitchy, but even kids will tell me, Twitchy sounds different in the sequel. And I'm like, you're right, it does. Because I walked into the studio and I said, hey guys, just so you know, this is a new group of people. The way that we recorded the Twitchy voice is, you just take the speed up 50%. You don't pitch my voice up, you just take the speed up in Pro Tools. Like, I gave them kind of the formula we did, and they went, thanks, we're not gonna do that. So
Wow.
They pitched my voice up and didn't speed my voice up as much. Like, they pitched the tone up. Anyway, they just did different things in the studio. They didn't really want to hear my suggestions when I was there. So even my voice as Twitchy sounds different. Just the way the characters are interacting sounds a little different. And there's 100 decisions you can make as a director, thousands, that change the course of a movie, how it looks, how it feels, how the actors even talk to each other. So that is not saying, I'm not saying what Mike Deesa did was bad. It was different. It was very different than Hoodwinked 1. So I think maybe, and it didn't make a lot of money. So I don't know. It's, we kind of took a stand with the people that funded it and said, unless these things financially happen on Hoodwinked and Hoodwinked 2, then we're not really interested in working. The best reaction you can have to a bad business relationship in Hollywood is just not to work with those people again and just move on. So we had moved on. But I'm very sad for those characters. And people ask me about Hoodwinked 3. I heard rumors of a Hoodwinked series. I have no control over that. That is controlled by Canbar Animation and whoever's taken over the Weinstein Company. I will tell you, I would love to, in a heartbeat, if somebody would, make it worth our while, which they never did. We had plans for Hoodwinked 3 where they were going to go to the moon or something. Like, we had just crazier and crazier ideas. I think it was the cow that jumped over the moon and the dish and the spoon from that nursery rhyme. Well, it was going to be like Moonraker, where like the cow literally lives on the moon and he's like this, I don't know, he's going to melt the earth with a freeze ray or something. I don't know what he was going to do. But he can't melt anything with a freeze ray. But we were talking about crazier and crazier ideas. Kind of like the Fast and the Furious series, how like each movie is crazier and further from reality. We're like, what other fairy tales can we go nuts with? And we had as you see in Hoodwinked 2, we had a whole mythology, not just for the Sisters of the Hood, the reason Red wears a hood, but also the HEA, the Happily Ever After agency. It's kind of a Men in Black agency that goes throughout the fairy tale world, solving crimes. The stories we know are actually the result of these crime stories that got solved. So it's not like they know that Cinderella has to put on the glass slipper. We're watching them figure it out. We're watching them. We had one version of Hoodwinked 2 where they were on a quest across the world to find Cinderella's last gold slipper, or the kingdom is doomed, her kingdom, that she'll never become queen, or we had a whole bunch of stories like that were based in the fairy tale world, and it's unfortunate we're not ever going to get to do them. I don't think we are. But if you hear of something, people ask me all the time, they know where to find me, and they know where to find Todd and Tony. So maybe someday, who knows?
And they didn't even get Anne Hathaway back for the second one.
Right. Well, and yeah, I remember running into her at a party, one of these parties that I was allowed to go to once Hoodwinked came out. And she was, last time I talked to her, she was like, I would love to do another one. But then they she became a huge, huge star right after Hoodwinked. And they offered her the same money as Hoodwinked 1. And she was like, well, I can't blame her. And Hayden Panettiere, I think that's how you say her last name. She did a great job as Red. I think everybody else came back.
Yeah. Well, Hoodwink 2 had some stuff in it I liked, but I just felt that there was something kind of lacking there, you know?
Yeah,
So,
that's a really long explanation too, but I don't want any soundbite to get pulled from this where they're like, that I hate what they did with it. I mean, I'm not a fan of what they did with it, but enough time has passed that I'm just like, well, they didn't get the original team, and it shows. It shows it's a very different movie. So I think at least it shows that if you don't get the original creative team to do the next movie, there's no way it's going to be the same, or it's going to be very difficult to replicate. And also, Hoodwink 2 had a lot of focus on it from a lot of people. And as I had said before, Hoodwink 1, nobody cared what we were doing. And we were in the future, I have a couple of really cool things. Literally any day now, I might know more. But I'll tell you, I've been trying for quite a long time now to get my 4th movie going. Currently, people can see Fearless on Netflix, which was another interesting project where there were a lot of cooks in the kitchen, but I think kids will still enjoy the end result. And that is a superhero video game sci-fi kids movie. It's got superheroes and some sci-fi villains in it, and it's on Netflix. That's called Fearless. So I guess I'll talk mostly about that. And then my next movie, we're trying to just basically close up the financing for a dream project of mine called Doomstar. And we have a very big actor already attached. Iconic, I can't say.
Bring back Patrick Warburton.
I'll try to find a place for him for sure. I'm always trying to find a place.
We need that voice, man.
But it's a sci-fi comedy in the vein of maybe Ghostbusters.
Okay.
Those types of blue collar sci-fi comedies, and so it's a script that we all love and the producers love. So hopefully that's going to be my next project. And currently writing another right now that is a dream project from like the past 15 years. So with the same producers. So very close to making my next one, and then writing on a new thing that involves swords and pirate ships. That's all I'll say.
Johnny Depp?
No Johnny Depp. I'm amazed that I like old-fashioned gee whiz kind of movies, and so a lot of things that I'm pitching and trying to make. I have a space movie, I have a cowboy movie, I have a pirate movie. I have a James Bond secret agent movie, so it's like I have a lot of the movies that I grew up with. I have an Indiana Jones movie type of movie. So it's like, if it has big guns and aliens or dinosaurs or flying cars in it, I'm in. I will probably never direct a political thriller. I will probably never make a sequel to Da Vinci Code. It's going to be something that 12-year-olds love, because I'm still in that era. I mean, you see what's behind me here. My goodness.
Yeah. And I'm not a big family film fan, but this here was really intelligent, I get a lot of love with this, I like something that will speak to adults, not just to children,
Yeah.
I hate attending family films because people don't know how to settle their kids down, but I had a great experience with this when I saw it.
Well, I always love to hear that. And I love that it keeps surprising people.
But then again, I also like animations like Fritz the Cat and Sausage Party as well.
Right. Well, animation has there's so many things we can do with animation that we're not doing. And I think that even when Hoodwink came out, it felt like every single movie that had a raccoon in it, all the raccoons look the same. All the fire hydrants look the same. All the cars look the same. All the trees look the same. There was an era, I think late 90s, where just everything was kind of looking the same. In animation, we should have a horror film in animation. We should have a thriller. We should have a romantic comedy in animation. I think that Pixar has really stretched our understanding, and a lot of other studios are now. Spider-Verse, Into the Spider-Verse has challenged once again. Once you think you know what a movie can do, that comes along. So we're continually reminded that animation is a tool. It's not.
I have that too. Yeah. And I don't buy a lot of animations, like I got the Toy Stories, I got Yellow Submarine, Yeah, Yellow Submarine was great. And I got Hoodwinked and
Yeah.
Sausage Party, and when it comes out on Blu-ray, Fritz the Cat. I've had Ralph Bakshi on here a couple times.
Oh wow, wow!
Yeah,
Talk about
yep,
an innovator.
yep.
Yeah,
And I
and
have,
I've got a fresh appreciation for Miyazaki, and you know, a lot of Asian anime, not even anime, but just like his kind of movies. They're quiet movies. They're
mhm.
movies for grown-ups. One of my favorite films is Nausicaa, and it takes a lot of patience to get through that first hour of that movie. It's an epic. So it's like animation is just a paintbrush, just like anything else, just like VFX, just like
Mhm.
a period piece. There should be like a period romance in animation, and I guess that Wes Anderson and Charlie Kaufman and guys like that are discovering you can use animation as a tool that
Oh, the
isn't
fantastic Mr.
necessarily for
Fox.
kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've had one of the voice actors from Sausage Party on here a couple times too, and
Oh
he
yeah.
did the voices on here. He's from Canada, right here in
Yeah.
Canada. You
And I'm sure
know.
that's tough because you see animation, you think it's for kids, so they had to do a lot of marketing there to make sure people knew you cannot bring
Yep,
your kids to this.
yep. But no, I really enjoyed this, and I'm surprised. Like, and again, I don't know the details of this. I haven't seen it right outright. Of course, if I go to a convention, maybe I see some odd things there. But is there any merchandise out there for Hoodwinked?
Good question. There is very little. There is very little. We
Because
had
they,
even we had a toy company interested in the
uh
middle of making Hoodwinked. And you can go talk to my investor on why that didn't happen because he wasn't happy with the deal or whatever. But I think the closest we got was that for Hoodwink 2, Burger King made some toys. So I still have some in plastic back there. I've got, oh, wait a minute. I'm going to just, for anybody that's watching this visually, you can at least see, there goes the Rocketeer. Sorry. But you can at least see, I don't know if anybody's watching the visual
Twitchy.
podcast. This is Twitchy the Squirrel.
Hmm.
And to have one of my characters become a Burger King toy, that's like right up there with getting an Oscar to me. I mean, like that is a toy. I got a toy. So this is it. The Burger King toys, if you can find them. I would also say the soundtrack is available from Rhino Records,
Hmm.
which got pulled off the shelves real early. I think it might be back again. But that was another one where the investor just, it was already on the shelves, and then the investor and the record company kind of got cantankerous because he didn't feel like the deal was big enough for him. So they pulled those from the shelf. So I think you can still get the soundtrack on iTunes, but if you can ever find a physical copy of the soundtrack, it is a beautiful product. It is it's got like a full color lyrics booklet with images from the film. It's got a kind of a whole piece written by Todd about the music of the film in it. And then also the DVD. I know that a lot of us are now just streaming our movies, but if you ever find what you're holding up, the physical copy of the Blu-ray, I believe it's on the Blu-ray as well as a regular DVD, but a lot of special features that may get lost in time. We did a whole commentary, the three of us, Tony, Todd, and I. And there's some making of documentaries on there and some cutscenes. So that's it, really. The actual movie, the soundtrack, and these Burger King toys.
You'd think they'd do some figurines or something, you know?
I would love that. I would love that.
Yeah. Because
I
when
mean,
I go to,
I probably wouldn't make any money off it myself, but I would love to see them anyway. I think that'd be great.
yeah. So you're still in touch with Patrick Warburton?
Oh yeah, yeah. Still talk to him. Talked to him a couple months ago.
Yeah, well, I love his work in this. I liked everybody in this, but there's no denying that voice.
Yeah,
And
it's a fun cast. It's a fun cast, and
yeah.
sadly, a lot of those people don't get to meet each other till the premiere, and then they kind of bump into each other.
Do you remember much about the premiere?
I do. And this was crazy because we had a couple of premieres. We had one in New York and then one in LA. And the New York one, I had never been to a premiere. I had never had a movie come out in theaters. So I found out about myself that I get so nervous before a big life event that my body physically shuts down. And I woke up the morning of the premiere and I had lost my voice. I had like a little bit of a voice. And my back was so tense, I couldn't bend down to tie my shoes. I put my suit on. I had a nice new black suit. And my wife had to tie my shoes for me because I could barely, my muscles had all seized up. So, so then I went and introduced the film in New York and talked to all these reporters with barely any voice. I had like a rusty. So then the LA premiere, they did that for the actors that were there. It was in the middle of the day, and I had a lot more fun with it. And we took a lot of fun pictures, and it was a much more fun, relaxed event because I'd already been through it in New York. And then we also, we actually had some very special screening events in Tulsa, where our production company first got its start, Tulsa, Oklahoma. And then we had one in Columbus, Ohio, where Todd and I grew up. So we had like kind of like other mini premieres. But it was a really special time that I wish I could get in a time machine and go back and say, really absorb this, really enjoy this, because it'll never happen this way again. And it was really great. And to see the actors showed up, and it was great to see them again. And they were all very excited. It's always great to make something. And at the time you're making it, you think this may be a tiny thing that'll never see the light of day. And a lot of actors know that. And so to be there on that red carpet and to see the press there, and it was like a real premiere. And some of the actors were like, they came up to me and said, congratulations, you did it. You really did what you said you were going to do. You made a movie in the theaters. So some of them knew the road that we had walked to get to that point. So they kind of celebrated with us.
Do you ever get to do the convention scenes?
I haven't. I mean, I've attended. I went to Comic-Con every year for like 12 years straight because I'm a fan. But I've been on a couple of panels.
Okay.
But I've never been like, like you sign autographs and you walk around and be Mr. Hoodwinked at a convention or Twitchy. That has not happened for me yet.
Yeah.
It's a sci-fi film, so maybe I'll become a convention darling with my sci-fi comedy.
Well, because I just started doing the convention in 2017 when an actress I interviewed invited me to assist her at Horrorama in Toronto, and I got the buzz from that. And I don't know. I would think that this would be a hot topic at a convention.
Maybe it will be. I don't know. We've all been shut down because of the pandemic, so maybe now that events are coming back, a weird thing is happening with Hoodwinked. It's kind of like Friends. Like Friends was like this dusty old sitcom, and now, like, I don't know, a lot of college kids are discovering it. And the same is happening with Hoodwinked, is that kids who were 5 or 6 when it came out, now they're rediscovering it, and they're going, oh, there are jokes in here that I didn't know at 6 years old. So I have gotten a lot of feedback from the world through social media about loving Hoodwinked again. It kind of went through a phase of people forgetting about it, and now people are loving it again. So we'll see what happens.
What's the most interesting thing you've ever been asked to sign?
I don't know. The most interesting thing, I've signed a lot of DVDs. I don't think I've ever signed anybody's arm or their chest or anything like that. Once somebody showed up, I do stand-up comedy too. And I was in the middle of the country somewhere doing a stand-up gig, and somebody goes, will you sign this? And they gave me a picture of me and my wife on vacation. And I'm like, where did you get this? And they're like, oh, I got it on the internet. And like, so it's just weird to be handed a very private, personal photo of your wife and you in front of a waterfall. And you're like, oh, are you stalking me? But no, they were just found it on the internet. So that was a weird thing to sign. But other than that, mostly DVDs. Okay.
Do you have any charities or website that you want to plug on here?
That is a good question. My niece and her family have my niece had leukemia for many years, and now she is cancer free, but she still fights for LLS. So I would say that would be the big charity that I would point towards is LLS. You can look them up. And a lot of what I talked about, Patrick Warburton and a couple other cast members have asked them to do things for that charity, as I have done things for that charity and auctioned off original Hoodwinked stuff for that charity, LLS. And then I have my own website. I haven't been doing much, but sometimes I write blogs about the film industry on CoryEdwards.com, CORY, and then Edwards. There's no E in Cory. CORY, CoryEdwards.com. And I'm out on Twitter. I believe the handle is Real Cory Edwards on Twitter. I love Twitter. I know Twitter's probably for older people now. I'm not on. I keep trying Instagram. I haven't tried the TikTok or the Snapchat.
You mean it doesn't say Real Twitchy?
No. I have a couple other Twitter personalities based on other characters I do or write about, but Twitchy, no. It's so weird because I don't own those characters. If I own I really think every character in Hoodwink should have their own Twitter feed. Twitchy would be great. I wonder what he would say.
Yeah.
It'd probably be all caps. Whatever he writes.
And no spaces between them.
Yeah, no punctuation.
Just all like
word. Yeah.
Especially after he's had coffee.
Yeah. It'd be a lot of tweets about coffee, probably.
Probably, yeah.
Would be a fun Twitter feed too.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I am so honored to have you come on here today and talk about this film, I still watch this, obviously. I've got the Blu-ray. I'm so happy to have you come on here and celebrate this,
I appreciate it. I always love talking about Hoodwink. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I tried to reach you a few years back, and I don't know where I tried to reach you, but I discovered your webpage this time around, and I was like, I was so glad I found something, so I could have somebody come on, because this is the first time I've highlighted this film on the show.
Well,
So I'm so delighted to be able to do that. Who else from this movie would you recommend I reach out to?
I think Todd would love to talk about the music and maybe the making of it. And then Patrick Warburton, I think he's a good guy to talk to. I don't know if he's too busy to do that. I'm trying to think of who else. But those are the biggest and best people. Yeah. And I think if Todd came on, maybe he would have John Painter come on too to talk about the music and the he was also the composer of the score.
Okay.
But yeah.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to reach out to them.
Who knows?
Patrick Warburton, would you be able to put me in touch with him?
Yeah. I'll see if he'll do it.
Because he's got a lot of stuff I could, like The Emperor's New Groove, Ted, and of course this,
Yeah.
But I mean, if he's willing to, I mean, you notice I don't bite, so
right.
So
what I can do.
Yeah, and if you can't, you can't. I'm, but the more the merrier. The people. I'm hoping this can find an even bigger audience. And more people discover this, because this is great. This is one of the most unique animations I've ever seen. So I remember seeing it in the theater and just being delighted. It was one of those movies I just came out surprised at how much I enjoyed this, how much I laughed at it. I showed it to my younger brother, who's my manager, and he enjoyed it as well. So
that's wonderful to hear. There's nothing like, my wife and I went to many theaters while it was playing, and we would just sit in the theater. We'd buy a ticket. We just sit in the theater and listen to other people react to the jokes. And it's a wonderful time in my life to remember too. So I always love talking about it.
Did your wife do a voice in this?
She does. I think she may be one of the first voices you hear, aside from the narrator, Nikki Flipper. She is she's the raccoon reporter. She's the first reporter that comes up to Chief Grizzly. Is there any connection to the Goody Bandit? So yeah. She shows up.
Oh, this is great. There's so many great jokes on this, Yep. Can she do the twitchy voice?
Well, I can do it like this.
No, I mean, can she do it?
You're gonna want to miss this podcast on Hoodwinked. Speed it up. That's the only voice I can do for Twitchy. I get really excited and I talk a lot of run-on sentences, and then you can use this if you want to, and you can speed it up in the post-production, but I don't know how to do that. That's it.
Yeah, I love that look Twitchy gets on his face when they slow his dialogue down in that recording. It's like, this is what I sound like.
That's my real voice coming through the tape recorder. Yeah, the criminal you are looking for. And I used to carry around a pocket tape recorder for when I would do screenings for kids, and they'd say, "Can you do Twitchy?" I said, "This is how I have to do it. What's your name?" And I would say, "Hey, Jeremy, it's great to see you. This is Twitchy." And then I had a tape recorder, and I could change the speed and play it back to them. That's the only way I could do it out and about in the world. So
that's fantastic. Well, I thank you so much for coming on here and talking to me about this, and celebrating Hoodwinked and taking time out of your day to come on here. I really appreciate it. Um, this is like a crown jewel. What a great way to start June with Hoodwinked.
Thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely. Anything else you want to plug before we close off?
No, that's it. That's it. If you ever want to reach me, it's Twitter and my blog, my website, CoryEdwards.com. I like reaching out to fans, and so a lot of times when I see an article that doesn't quite get it right or reports on the days of Hoodwink, like you know where to find me. I'm always happy to talk about it and reach out to fans about filmmaking and animation in any way. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on here and allowing me the honor to interview you. And yes, I hope to have more people from Hoodwinked come on here and we can further get that out there.
Increase Hoodwinked awareness, of course.
Hoodwinked awareness. Absolutely. Anyway, thank you so much and God bless you. And hopefully we'll get through this pandemic. We're getting a
Yes.
little closer to the end of the tunnel on this. So
Yes. Let's all get back to the movie theater, guys. It's the best place to watch them.
actually, I've been going back since last July.
Good for you. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
There's nothing like it.
you got your
Oh, all right.
vaccines yet?
What's that?
You got your vaccines yet?
Not yet. Not yet.
I got one. I don't know if Twitchy should get one or not.
Man, I think Twitchy might have a crazy chemical reaction. Sure. He might get 5 shots just for fun.
Absolutely. Well, God bless you and thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless you. And thanks. This has been great. Thanks, Greg.
Absolutely. You take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.